Almost a year has gone by since I bought my first e-mountain bike, a Trek Powerfly 5, so I thought it might be a good idea to have a wee look to see how it's performed in that time. Trek's Powerfly 5 has a robust aluminium frame and comes in three distinctive styles: a hardtail like mine, a full suspension model and a long travel or LT type. There's also a woman's model. The geometry is a wee bit different with a curved crossbar for lower standover height, but essentially it's the same bike. What initially attracted me to this bike was the fully integrated battery, which means the battery is protected from rain and mud and all the kind of stuff that we cycle over. It's placed in the drive side of the down tube, completely hidden from view. Now you can easily take the battery out of the bike to charge it, or as I do, charge it in my garage with it still in place, actually in the bike frame. The battery is a PowerTube 500 and it powers a Bosch Performance CX motor. This is designed specifically for off-road riding. With its 75 Nm of torque, it lets you tackle pretty steep trails. It also drives the bike up to 25 km per hour, 15.5 miles an hour, which is of course the legal limit for e-bikes in the UK. Now there are 5 assistance modes on this bike: Eco, Tour, Sport MTB and Turbo. But of course you can ride the bike with the power switched off if you want, although you quickly remember you're cycling a pretty heavy bicycle. The Powerfly has Shimano Deore drivetrain and hydraulic disc brakes and 29-inch Bontrager wheels with XR3 tyres. Now I changed the original saddle for a specialised gel saddle. It's just that wee bit more comfortable than the original. So how has this bike performed over the past year? Well, first of all, let me make it clear how I use this bike. I ride it predominantly on forest trails and kind of easier single track routes. I don't do jumps, I don't do acrobatics, or I don't race, or I don't even do wheelies. But I am happy to ride this bike on tracks that climb up beyond 3,000 feet. And that often involves some pretty tough and gnarly descents, but nothing that could be described, I don't think, as extreme. And I'm probably fairly typical of the rider this bike was aimed at. I've just had the bike serviced and the diagnostic printout was quite interesting. In the time I've had the bike, I've ridden it 2,171 kilometres, and that's about 1,300 miles. Now, that's not a big mileage, but I do ride other bikes, a road bike and an analogue mountain bike. But what's interesting is the breakdown of the assist modes within that mileage. It would appear I've ridden over 800 kilometres without any power at all, but that's not too surprising when you remember there's no assist recorded when you're freewheeling downhill, or when the motor cuts out when you reach the legal limit of 15.5 miles an hour. According to the printout, I've ridden mostly in eco mode, 35% of the ride time, with 726 kilometres. Tour mode, 26% of the time, EMTB mode 33% of the time, and turbo mode a mere 6% of the time. Now that's apparently fairly typical, and it's why some manufacturers don't offer a turbo mode anymore. It would appear very few people actually use it all that much. Now I can't say I'd like to be without it, mind you. It comes in very handy sometimes and certainly puts a smile on your face. So have I encountered any real problems with this bike in the past year? Well, after a couple of months the battery refused to hold a charge, so I had it checked and it turned out to be a faulty battery. It was immediately replaced with no hassle at all from Trek or the shop where I bought it, Mike's Bikes in Aviemore. I've had new brake pads fitted, which surprised me a bit. I thought the pads would last longer than a couple of thousand kilometres. But I guess I do use the brakes quite a lot, especially coming down steep and loose mountain tracks. I also find gear changing a wee bit clunky. You're advised to stop pedalling when you change gear, but sometimes that's not really an option. Sometimes the gear change is so noisy it actually makes me kind of wince. But other than that, I've had no real issues with the bike, and amongst the things I like about this bike are the 29-inch wheels, which roll along really nicely once you've got up a wee bit of speed. And I love the shape of these bar ends. No pressure on your hand because it's spread, the pressure's spread, which is great when most of your biking is on pretty rough ground. The big negative, and it's the same for most e-bikes, is the weight of it. This one's about 50 pounds, 22k, and you have to seriously consider how you're going to carry the bike when you're transporting it anywhere. I use a tow bar bike rack, which is I think the best option, but it's an awful lot of weight to lift up onto a roof rack, a rooftop rack in your car. Worth bearing in mind if you're thinking of buying an e-bike. Oh, and by the way, I paid just under 3k for this bike. 2020 models are pretty much the same price, but slightly more expensive, but have a newer Bosch motor which is a little bit lighter in weight. I know it's an awful lot of money, and that's at the cheaper end of the e-mountain bike scale. E-bikes are certainly not cheap. So there you go. I've loved riding this bike. I'm still very, very pleased with it. And once lockdown is over, I want to load it up with some camping gear and go off and have an overnight somewhere. I reckon I can squeeze in maybe a 60-mile trip, 100 kilometers on a single charge, so that'll be quite interesting. I hope to film that trip as well, so if you want to see how it goes, press that big red subscribe button down below. Finally, if you ride a bike purely for keeping fit, I'm not fully convinced you'll do that on an e-bike. Yes, you still have to make a fair effort, you've got to keep turning those pedals, but it's so easy to slip into a more powerful mode when, for example, you see a big hill looming up in front of you. I ride this bike mostly in the eco mode, which I reckon compensates for the weight of the bike. But if you're riding bikes purely for fitness and not necessarily fun, you're probably better sticking to something like a road bike. Having said that, you can still get a really good workout on an e-bike, but you need a lot of self-discipline, and sometimes, just sometimes, I'm not very good in that department. See you next time. Bye bye.